Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hello and welcome once again to Cheap Shot Entertainment. I am your host Luke and you are the Cheap Shot Nation, and it's time for some more 2001 retro reviews. We're going straight into the month of February for No Way Out, which was on the 25th of February 2001. It featured the famous 3 stages of hell. I think there's only been one other apart from this really good match, and I'm surprised they don't use it a lot more to sort out feuds, because it'd be dead easy to do. I remember playing this match type on wrestling games, and you could do all sorts of things on it. It was crazy. It was from the Thomas and Mack Center in Paradise, Nevada, and of course you have the King and JR on commentary for this one. So stay in your seats, and I'm going to take you through everything that happened a full 20 years ago as of the release of this video.
This is awesome!
A very unique match starts the show. It is for the Hardcore Championship, and of course the Hardcore Championship in 2001 was 24/7 rules, so very different in the fact that it was an actual sanctioned match for a title that's a lot of fun. Let's face it, I loved the Hardcore Championship back in the day. It's everything the 24/7 Championship wants to be now in a semi-PG era. It would be the champion Raven versus the Big Show, and it wouldn't be long before other wrestlers would come in, because, you know, 24/7, and they come in to try and pin Raven. Anyway, we get a surprise entrant in a popcorn vendor that turned out to be Steve Blackman. He comes down. Hardcore Holly comes down to try and wrestle the championship, or bin lid the championship away from Raven. Billy Gunn wins the championship. He comes down, he wins the championship. He's the Hardcore champion for all of a matter of moments before the match continues, because 24/7 rules, and Raven wins back the championship. Really good match, this one. Lots of run-ins, but it's the Hardcore Championship, so I don't have a problem with them running in. The Big Show in 2001 was absolutely awesome. He'd been with the company for a good 2 years. He made his debut in 1999 in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre pay-per-view, in February, of course, St. Valentine's Day, on the 14th of February that year. The Big Show, absolutely awesome, and like I say, Raven wins the championship, but then Big Show comes in and just wrestles the championship away from Raven. Well, it doesn't really wrestle it. There was bins, there was stop signs, fire extinguishers, you name it, you got a Hardcore Championship match. Of course, Raven comes down with his trolley full of goodies that got used throughout the match. But Big Show finally wins the championship, and he goes away as the Hardcore champion. 3 out of 5 cheap shots for this one. Really good match, really fun opener. And it would lead to one of my favourite hardcore matches on any pay-per-view ever at WrestleMania 17, which we will get to, as our guest reviewer is the big boss Tom Priest. We're going to be watching that together, and we're going to be doing the review. So yeah, brilliant match, great opening match, and one of the most fun hardcore matches I've seen in a long time. Move on next, the champ Kurt Angle arrives in the arena, and then we move on to the Intercontinental Championship match, which is a fatal 4-way between Chris Jericho, the current Intercontinental Champion, X-Pac, Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. Put these four guys in a ring together, expect magic to happen, and magic did indeed happen. Of course, Chris Benoit jumping from heights that you've never seen before, just hitting headbutts here, there and everywhere, missing them on occasion as well. Eddie Guerrero always entertaining, and of course Chris Jericho has that love-hate relationship with Chris Benoit. Where X-Pac factors into this one, I've no idea. Maybe they just needed a role for him. He's broken away. I mean, DX is not really a thing at this point in time. Everyone's doing their own thing. So X-Pac, of course, goes and gets himself a lackey in Just Incredible. Like I say, it was 2001, and obviously WCW and ECW were purchased by Vince McMahon. The very fate of WCW was in his hands, and he purchased the company as well as ECW. Now, they had a good working relationship with ECW and Paul Heyman. Of course, Paul Heyman is still in the company now, so they brought in more ECW guys earlier on during that year, which is why you didn't see a lot of WCW guys unless they'd come over before the takeover. Chris Jericho would walk out of the arena as champion. He would still be champion. He would retain. Chris Jericho gets a surprise roll-up, and we all know that is the most devastating move in professional wrestling. Even back in 2001, 20 years ago, it was still the most devastating move in professional wrestling. He gets that win on X-Pac to retain the championship, even though Just Incredible would come down to try and help his stablemate X-Pac by interfering. I'm going to give this one a 3.5 cheap shots out of 5, or 3.5 cheap shots out of 5. Put these four, like I say, put these four together and you expect magic to happen, and it certainly did. Very entertaining match from start to finish. Each guy got their shots in, and of course you've got X-Pac, who's experienced. You've got Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, who are really good friends, or they still were really good friends. Obviously it's kayfabe, so they're going against each other. In fact, I think they were working together. I think they were part of the Radicals at this point in time. So there's that, and of course Chris Jericho also has a good working triangle with Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, having come from WCW round about the same time. So really good match, this sleeper hit of the night. I'm going to christen it as the sleeper hit of No Way Out 2001. Another interlude now. It is Mr. McMahon and William Regal, and Mr. McMahon says that William Regal will know what to do in regards to the match between Trish Stratus, his lover, and Stephanie McMahon, his beloved daughter. Of course, the storyline at this point in time was Mr. McMahon wanting a divorce from Linda McMahon and sleeping with Trish. I mean, you know what? If I was the boss of that company, say I want a storyline where I'm sleeping with Trish, and it'd have to happen, wouldn't it? There you go. I don't blame Vince McMahon one bit for this storyline at all. It was a bit on the nose with the divorce angle and all that kind of stuff, but it's the McMahons. What do you expect? Anyway, we're going to move on to that match now. It is Trish Stratus versus Stephanie McMahon, and I've got to say, this was one of the most entertaining women's wrestling matches I'd seen throughout the whole of the 2000s and early 2001s. All these really good female wrestlers. They're very, very well celebrated throughout the late 90s, early 2000s. And Trish Stratus, someone who was brought in based on her looks, became one of the most celebrated women's champions in WWE history. And Stephanie McMahon, who is always entertaining in or out of the ring, it doesn't really matter, she is just entertaining. Put on a show. They're both part-time wrestlers. Trish Stratus is learning at this point, and you've got to respect her effort in this match for that. And obviously Stephanie McMahon has been around the business since she was born. So she knows what to do, she knows how to work up a crowd. Both are on the heel side of the crowd, so no one knows what to cheer for except when they just get into a massive scrap, and that's why it was so much fun. So this is a hard-hitting match. Both these ladies put on a show, telling the fans that they hated each other, and boy howdy did they make that match happen. Such an entertaining match. Vince McMahon does come out during the match, tries to separate them. William Regal comes out, doesn't know what to do. He puts Trish on top of Stephanie and then changes his mind. He pulls her off, or puts Stephanie's foot on the ropes. That breaks the pin. Trish Stratus has a go at William Regal. Of course, ever being the gentleman, he puts his hand out to apologise to Trish and straight into a Regal cutter. And yeah, I mean, that was just insanely ridiculous for 2001. A male wrestler putting his hands on a female superstar and just not giving a crap, really, and just putting her in the Regal cutter, and that was it. Stephanie McMahon wins the match after William Regal received that slap and Trish receives the Regal cutter. Stephanie picks up the win. Like I say, it was better than most women's matches of the 2000s from two part-time talents, and that says a lot about. I always say this is a line that I use for the whole of the 2000s and going into 2001. Two part-timers says a lot about the women's division at this point, but ultimately very entertaining. I'm going to give this a straight down the middle 3 cheap shots out of 5. Insanely entertaining, 2 very good talkers, 2 women who know what to do inside a ring to get a crowd going, and they just know wrestling inside and out. You can tell at this point that Trish is very much in love with the business, and like I say, Stephanie is someone who's been brought up around the business, so she knows what to do to get a good match out of anybody. Even if it wasn't wrestling, it was never meant to be wrestling, it was a grudge match, and they just beat the snot out of each other, and there's nothing the referee could do. Good match. So we move on to the first part of the double main event. It is the 3 stages of hell match between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H, and of course these two absolutely detest each other. It was Triple H that was revealed as the mastermind behind the Austin car incident back in 1999 at Survivor Series, and obviously Stone Cold has had dealings with Triple H in the Royal Rumble. He came down, cost Triple H the championship. Triple H almost cost Austin the win in the Royal Rumble, and of course it goes back further than that. The Armageddon Hell in a Cell, Survivor Series. These two were just, whether they were partners or whether they were going against each other, these two were absolute gold, along with The Rock and Kurt Angle and Undertaker. Just amazing main eventers where you could barely choose who should be champion, and the championship flip-flopped between all 5 of these guys during the early 2000s. So the first match in the 3 stages of hell was a straight shoot wrestling match, which Austin would pick up the win on. He hits the stunner and takes the first fall. Of course, there is some hijinks here. They're outside the ring, they're inside the ring, and the stunner would ultimately get that first fall for Stone Cold Steve Austin. The second fall, of which Stone Cold says, "There ain't no way you're beating me in a street fight," because that's where Austin's talents lie. But hey, you know what? Austin beat Triple H in his speciality match. He's a shoot fighter, he's a technician. Stone Cold is a brawler. So why not have Triple H go over Stone Cold in the street fight? Again, this part of the match was absolutely brutal. There's sledgehammers, there's chairs, there's all sorts of things. They battle down to the entrance ramp. Stone Cold gets hit in the face with with all sorts of things here, and it takes a sledgehammer that was produced from underneath the stairs, or the steel steps, and there's a funny moment on commentary. It's like the King asking JR if he put the hammer there. Of course he blinking didn't. He's Stone Cold's best mate. I mean, God, Stone Cold. But it was quite funny. Triple H would retrieve the said sledgehammer and get the second fall with a smack around the head and a pedigree. It is now 1-1 between Stone Cold and Triple H in the 3 stages of Hell match. The third fall, should it be needed, which it was, of course it would be, because it's a 3 stages of Hell match, why not do all 3, was a steel cage match, and of course all the weapons and everything in the ring was in the ring when the cage came down, and of course the weapons were left in the ring at this point, and this would lead to the untimely finish of the third fall. But I mean, the third fall was just a separator. I mean, they'd taken all of everything during the first 2 falls. There's, of course, the didn't mention the barbed wire baseball bat in the ring, as well as the sledgehammer. Untimely finish. Stone Cold hits Triple H with Barbie, and Triple H does the same with the sledgehammer. They hit each other at the same time in a big rocky moment, and they both fall over, except that Triple H falls on top of Stone Cold and gets the deciding victory. Triple H beats Stone Cold, beats the Royal Rumble winner, the man who's going to WrestleMania to face the winner of the main event. Triple H wins. Puts him firmly back in with a chance of winning that title come Backlash in April of 2001. Great match. Can't fault this match at all. The ring psychology was great. The matches that they chose were genius, and these two are absolute legends, and again know how to work a crowd, know how to work a match, know how to tell a story, and this story has been going for a long time, over a year now at this point, and it's just brilliant. So I mean, brutal, most awesome, smiley face with sunglasses, because that's exactly how I felt when I was writing this. 5 cheap shots out of 5, a very rare mark, but it is a mark that I feel we will see quite a lot during the year 2001. So the next match, we get to see a male chauvinistic match in which a woman is the championship, the title that both men are fighting for. It is Jerry the King Lawler, of course. If you're going to have a chauvinistic match, it's got to involve the King, versus Steven Richards, who both have opposite ideas of what the cat should be. So the King wants to get Cat naked, of which he would do many times, because he did end up marrying her, making her his like 45th wife, and Steven Richards wants to cover her up. So that's what they're fighting for, the ability for her to get her tits out or not get her tits out. And that is the crux of the match. Needless to say, it wasn't great. We get Ivory would be down at ringside, and the title to the head would be what gives Steven Richards the victory. The cat is now officially part of the right to censor. Everyone boos. She gets carried away on the shoulder of Val Venus, the former male stripper, male adult movie star actually, called Val Venus, who's now part of the right to censor. He doesn't like that thing anymore. I quite like the right to censor, I will say this right now. I do think that they had something going for them, and but most of the matches they were in were Well, I mean, they were throwaway. I mean, they usually involve some kind of title shot to the head, some kind of interference. They were tag team champions for a while. Obviously, Ivory has been the women's champion for a good long while at this point in time. But yeah, they had a good gimmick, and it made people boo them, and that's ultimately why I like it more now as an adult male rather than my teenage self wanting to see boobies. Of course, something that I've grown up from now. So a sad day for the King and for the WWE Universe as the cat gets dragged away on the shoulder of Val Venus, and the cat is now part of the right to censor. Moving on to the WWF Tag Team Championships now. It is your standard tables match, only this time it's triple threat. So yeah, a lot of table matches going off during the 2000s and 2001s. I love tables matches, especially when they involve the Dudley Boys, because, you know, the innovators of the table match are and should be in every single one of them, and pretty much they have been. But this one, the Dudleys, those damn Dudleys, Bubba Ray and Devon versus E and C. That's Edge and Christian in Old Money versus the B.O.D. as in Brothers of Destruction. That is Kane and The Undertaker, an unstoppable force throughout 2001, and would pay off big time as a decision to put these two brothers together for a tag team. Who's going to stop two 7-footers like kicking the tar out of you? You know what I mean? It's like it's nuts. But in the words of JR, this match was absolutely hellacious from start to finish. Obviously, the Undertaker and Kane is beating up everybody because that's what they do, and obviously you've got the Dudley Boys in there as well, and Edge and Christian, so they're in there to do the spots and everything, and the BOD are just there to beat people up. But during the match, in which Haku, who interestingly was also on a WCW pay-per-view about a month previous, would turn up in WWE, or WWF as it were then, with Rikishi. Of course, Haku and Fatu made up the Head Shrinkers all the way back in 1993 at that very famous WrestleMania known as WrestleMania 9. I'm not afraid to say that it still is perhaps one of my favourites. It's the one that I remember being able to watch freely when I was a child. I'm about 10 years old. It was the first one I had on VHS. Yes, VHS, the tapes that you put in a VCR and watch, and you had to physically wind them back and things like that. Well, yeah, Haku's back. He comes out with Rikishi. They attack the Brothers of Destruction, and they stop Undertaker and Kane from becoming the champions before the Dudleys drop Christian through a table with a 3D and pick up the victory. They retain the championships. Of course, the Dudleys were the champions coming in. The masters of the tables match. Of course, if there was a ladder in there, perhaps Edge and Christian would have come up on top with this one. But really, really good match. You can't go wrong with a tables match. It's brutal. It's, you know, you feel the pain on the wrestlers' faces, and it's just ultimately very entertaining. You add all the other stuff in, it makes it a cool thing. But tables matches, ladder matches, brilliant on their own, and this one was no different. I'll say always fun, and I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5 cheap shots. I don't think the running from Haku and Haku and Rikishi made much difference in this one. and I don't think he was really needed to further a storyline. I know Rikishi and The Undertaker got this thing going from Armageddon, but Rikishi, I've said it before, he can't talk on the microphone, so he's never going to be a main event player. So why pull The Undertaker away from that? And I thought it would have been interesting to see Undertaker and Kane as champions, but as it were, like I say, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 cheap shots. So after an epic show, we're finally on to the main event. It is Kurt Angle, the champion, been champion for quite some time now, overcoming all challenges, including 5 other guys in the Armageddon Hell in a Cell. He's coming up here against The Rock. He beat Triple H the month previous in the at the Royal Rumble with help from Stone Cold Steve Austin. Again, really good match. Can't go wrong with these two. I mean, Kurt Angle is performing above what anybody thought he would perform, and The Rock is always entertaining, but of course he's pretty much Hollywood at this point in time, just going through the motions and still part of the main event, which is always good because I like The Rock. I do like The Rock, and I love Kurt Angle as well. But we do get after initial start from The Rock, who beating the tar out of Kurt Angle at every turn. Kurt Angle would turn the tides, and he would have most of this match, the heat, as it were. But as The Rock comes back, the Big Show comes out. He was destroying everybody in the Hardcore Championship match, but he still has a grudge against The Rock. Of course, The Rock kicked the Big Show out of the ring over the top rope in the Royal Rumble the month previous. That's a storyline that's been going on for a good year now. So The Rock. So the Big Show comes down, chokeslams The Rock. Kurt Angle nearly gets the win. The Rock comes back. He hits a rock bottom. Doesn't look to me like Kurt Angle's shoulder is up, but it only goes to a 2 count. This is after Kurt Angle had run it into the exposed turnbuckle, which I think the Big Show had done, and hits the rock bottom. Hits it again and picks up the championship. He regains the championship. I can't remember how many times he's had it at this point in time, but let's just say it's quite a few. But as usual, a main event match of this calibre was absolutely the ultimate entertainment. The crowd were hot for it as well, which always makes a difference, and I do say that's the thing about today's WWE, is that the crowds aren't there. So I mean, they pump in the atmosphere and they've got the Thunderdome, but it's just not quite the same as seeing John on the front row with his little missus wearing the pink and green tracksuits. Maybe I'm just a bit old school on that, but yeah. So The Rock heads to WrestleMania 17, rekindling his rivalry with Stone Cold Steve Austin, who of course won the Royal Rumble in 2001, and they both go over to WrestleMania 17. I think it's in Houston. Is it in Houston? Yeah, it is in Houston. It's the Astrodome, isn't it? A great match. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 cheap shots. Really, really good. Good main event, pay-per-view main event. Good pay-per-view overall. We've had 2 really good pay-per-views. Royal Rumble was phenomenal pay-per-view. No Way Out, definitely up there. And then we go on to WrestleMania, and I can't wait to watch that one for you guys on Retro Reviews for Cheap Shot Entertainment. Anyway, I've been your host, Luke. I hope you're taking care of yourselves, doing all the things that your governments are telling you to do, or asking you to do. Can't say telling, because it's democracy. All the things that the government's asking you to do, staying safe, making sure that your loved ones are safe, and all that kind of stuff. Let's get through this together. But in the meantime, I'm always going to be here on Cheap Shot Entertainment, giving you some retro reviews, some bit of nostalgia from 20 years ago, and my goodness, has this not kept me going, because it has, and it's been really cool. But you guys are cool. Cheap Shot Nation, I've been your host, Luke, and I will see you next time on more retro reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.
Bye.